Well, now to get on to the problem solving that's going to happen within your groups, let's look at the agenda for problem solving. Many of you had to make some decisions in your life, or I think all of you have had to make decisions in your life, some bigger than others, but maybe just take the idea of going to college, whether you should go to college, where you should go to college. These are all problems. And if you think back on how you made those decisions and think back on some of the decisions you made that maybe weren't the best, uh, you might find that if you had used an agenda, an actual formatted agenda, you might have made a better decision. And this little unit is about a situation that you can use to solve problems. And solving problems as a group is a whole different thing than solving problems as an individual. As a group, you have much more going on. You've got uh, the culture of the rest of the people, you've got other agendas they have, and so on. So we're going to look at a way that you can really make good decisions as a group. Uh, there are some steps to this. First of all, and we're going to go over these each one by one, but we'll look at them quickly right now. The first stage is simply to define the problem. Not a simple thing. Even though you think it's simple, it isn't necessarily simple. We'll talk about that. Stage two, analyze the issues of the problem. Stage three, establish a criteria. What does the solution for this problem have to do? What does it have to what criteria would you have for that solution? And then, once you've decided what criteria it has to meet, then you generate solutions, usually through brainstorming. Then you evaluate the solutions. Notice you evaluate the solutions after brainstorming. Then you choose the best decision and how you're going to implement it. You're going to be doing this in your groups right at the very beginning. You're required to do this. Then stage seven would be to develop an action plan to monitor the solution. What do we have, what do we have to do to see that the solution is working? Do we have to go back and readdress that solution? So let's look at the problem, the definition of the problem. This actually is a formal written statement describing the problem. Let's take an example. Let's say that you think there's a problem at Palm Beach State College with parking. You could look at this a number of different ways. One way would be to say we have a problem with parking at Palm Beach State College. Well, let's define having a problem. Is there a time we have a problem? Obviously, at 10 o'clock at night, there's no problem. Is there a problem at 8 o'clock in the morning? Is there a problem in certain areas of the campus? So when you're talking about defining the problem, be very, very careful. This step is the step that's most often overlooked. It's like, oh, it's obvious. This is the problem. No, make a formal written statement describing the problem. Your first situation will be to choose a target audience for your advertisement. I want you to write that as a formal statement. Describe the problem. What is it? We're going to talk about that. We have questions of fact. Is it true or not? Well, that wouldn't be a situation with the deciding what kind of audience you're going to have. Would it be a question of value? Well, is it good or bad? No. A question of policy. It asks what course of action should be taken. So right away you can see that you're going to have to, your problem definition is going to be a question of policy. What course of action should we take? Now, the second step is to analyze the problem. What are the symptoms of the problem? Well, when you're looking at the target audience, what are the symptoms of the problem? What are you going to have to do here? What are the causes of the problem? Can we break this into smaller problems? For a little problem like target audience, maybe not. But for a bigger problem like what software should we use or how should we create this advertisement, those are quite different. So you might want to look at those a little differently. what have others done who face this problem? You know, what have people done? Just look at what kind of target audiences people have done. How successful they've been in the solutions they've attempted. Again, pretty obvious. And how is our situation similar or different from theirs? Are you doing the same thing that other people have done? Are you doing something different? Does the problem consist of several smaller problems? Well, you're going to have to decide that. What would be the consequences of doing nothing? I can tell you what the consequences of doing nothing would be in this situation. You would fail the project. However, in some situations, let's say that you're on the board of Palm Beach State College and you're talking about parking situations, you might have to look at what are the consequences of doing nothing. So don't look at this as just a part of this particular project for this class, but look at this beyond the class. The third step, determining the criteria. What are the measures? What will tell us that we've made a good decision? Are there things that we can and cannot do? Do we have enough time to do things? Do we have enough manpower? Do we have enough knowledge? You can choose a target audience. Again, we're talking about just choosing a target audience. Do you have the resources for that? Do you understand the audience? Now, as far as cost, time, and manpower, that's not going to affect that, but it could affect when you get into choosing software and things like that for this project. Is solution simplicity a factor? Does it matter that we have a simple solution, or can our solution be a little more complex? Do you want to take a risk? In this situation, do you want to take a risk on losing all your points by choosing a poor target audience? You've got to look at that. Is ease of implementation a consideration? Well, probably not in this situation, but it could be when it gets to your software. So be looking at that again. Remember, this is not just for this project, but for projects in life, for decisions you make about who you're going to marry, where you're going to live, things like that. These are all problems you're going to have in your life, and this is a good agenda to use to determine when you're making a good solution. Is it important that no constituency be unfairly harmed or disadvantaged or advantaged by the solution? In this situation, you'll have to answer that yourselves. Now, let's look at alternative solutions. Do we have other ideas that we could come up with? You can use brainstorming here. Brainstorming is one of the things we've talked about in this class over and over again. But brainstorming is taking a set period of time and throwing out as many ideas as you can without evaluating anything during the brainstorming period of time. You do not evaluate anything, good or bad, during a brainstorming, but you can build upon ideas within brainstorming. Do not evaluate ideas that are volunteered. Make sure that everybody knows what has been volunteered. Write them down. It's a good idea for everybody to write them down as they're said. Go for the quantity, not quality. Don't worry about the quality. You can clean that up later. Just get ideas down and then build on ideas. If somebody has an idea, then maybe you can take off on that and come up with another idea. Encourage creativity. When I say don't evaluate, what I'm talking about is don't be negative. But if you want to encourage people, hey, that's a good idea, let's go for something else, that would encourage you to move on. So now let's move on to step 5, methods to evaluate solutions and decide. You can use expert opinion. Sometimes you have an expert within your group when it comes to choosing software. Perhaps you have somebody who's particularly adept at using a particular sort of software, and when you're looking at 3 or 4 different software, let that person who knows, maybe that person make the decision. You can also just make a decision based on what does the group think, kind of like take a vote. What's the best way? You can also just make sure that everybody agrees. You can wait till everybody agrees, sort of like a death sentence. Everybody has to agree on this. And then you can deliberate until you find a solution that everybody accepts. The main idea here is that everybody should agree. Uh, Most of these, the average and majority, unanimous, and consensus, all deal with the group. The expert opinion is the one here that says, let one person make the decision. The person who understands it best could make the decision. That could be dangerous when you're working with management in situations. So be careful of that when you're in a situation where you're in a group discussion or a team and management or ownership has come in to work with you, that you don't rely on them to make the decision. Now, how do you implement the solution? For your simple task of choosing a target audience, there's no big deal. You're just, to move ahead. But some other things might require other tasks be involved. And then you would need to know who's going to take care of those tasks, and then what's the reasonable time frame for this to be finished. Now, this could be, again, when you get to creating your advertisement, you can go through, what do we have to do to get this advertisement done? Who will do what? And what's our time frame? So now I want you to get started using this problem-solving agenda, even for the small problems. I want to see in your evaluations, when you write your evaluations, that you have used this agenda. First of all, select the target audience using the problem-solving agenda. Get started on that. What's the problem? Does everybody agree? What does a good answer look like? And all the other things. Those are the 7 things that we just pointed out. So now, create a 30 to 60-second video targeting a specific audience. Your specific purpose is to get them to enroll in Palm Beach State College. You are to use the Monroe motivated sequence to create this advertisement.